Ohio Mina-san, what's up, weebs and casuals alike? We're Baka and Company, and we're here to provide you with a deep dive into all the random anime shows and movies that we find interesting. We'll talk about both new and old, good and bad, and everything in between. On this episode, we have myself, the sailor of the giant moon, Drewtendo64, and the mysterious man from Atlantis, it's Magically Average.
I will find you, and I will steal you back and trap you in a bubble.
And today we will be talking about Ponyo and, to a lesser extent, Ham.
Ham!
From Studio Ghibli, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. But before I dive too deep into that, what's going on, Magically Average? What's new?
Not much. Life is being lifey right now. Frank and I, we don't have Frank today. He is doing adult things and is moving currently. So we are down one hot dog. But we were on our Baka Bites podcast on Monday. We were talking about how summer sucks when you're an adult. Summer's no bueno. It's a time when, as a kid, you used to get out of school and be able to be free and do whatever you want and like go to the water park, go to theme parks, hang out with your buddies all the time. And now as an adult, you're just like, man, I still go to work every day. And it's hot.
And it's gross.
Yeah, it's like there's like no upside. Like for me, I'm like I golf in the summer, but outside of that, I'm like, man, give me fall. Give me like 55 degrees so I can wear my flannel. Give me football. Give me like the fall and wintertime snacks and goodies and stuff. Like I want to drink hot drinks again. Is that so much to ask for, Drew, to drink hot drinks again?
No, you could still do it. You just have to crank your AC and pay for it. But
yeah, exactly. Like
no,
I'm not going to Starbucks and getting like a hot coffee. I'm getting something iced because I don't want to sweat as much as I already do after pounding a hot coffee. But yeah, but no, I mean everything else is going pretty good. What about yourself, Mister? In your 2D plane, what's going on there?
I want to say I'm in the same boat with you because I really like fall. I like the crunchy leaves. I like being
Halloween.
I don't know, like in giant pillow blanket forts, watching movies.
Oh
having
yes,
a good time.
Yeah.
So I'm very into that as well. Where I'm located, I'm kind of in a spot where either weather is perfectly fine or it's god awful. So there's no real safe in between.
Yeah.
And I can't agree with you more about the kids. Like my significant others in the teaching profession, so hearing all the fun stuff about back to school just reminds me about how close summer is ending. And
oh my gosh, yeah, you're like in the thick of it. The fact that your significant other is in the education system.
Yes.
You're very well in tuned with when school's back in session. I bet you have like the countdown clock.
Like, yeah, we have a calendar and it's like X number of days until stuff like that. Or even during the school year, it's like this many days till break or this many days till holidays, and it's just a never-ending cycle. But I want to say my summer's been decent. I wanted to go to some more conventions, but I want to also support people on strike, so I don't want to, pay someone to sign something when I know some people should be getting a better share of the business. So I'm torn between, because I have a friend offering me tickets to go to a convention coming up, and I'm like, I don't know.
Now that you said that, I actually went to a convention last weekend, and I met Bryson Baggus, who is a voice actor for like Belle Crenell and Falco from Attack on Titan, and
cool.
A couple other big characters. And then I met Kira Buckland, who is the voice actor for Jolene and what the hell is her name from Demon Slayer? Is it Mitsuri? That doesn't sound right. Maybe it is.
Oh,
Cotton Candy Girl. Yeah. I met her too, and I feel bad because I'm like, I didn't even think twice about the SAG-AFTRA strike. Oopsie poopsie. But they were wonderful people, though.
exactly. Like I'll support the people, but yeah, Mitsuri, you're right.
Okay. I know
Wow,
me some anime.
on behind the voice actors, they have a picture of her for her role, but she's dressed up as 2B, so that's that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like just make choices. That's all I'm saying is people like if you know where your money's going and you're aware of the issues, by all means. Like I'm 90% sure I'm going to Fan Expo just so I can meet the voice actor for Optimus Prime.
Oh, there you go.
So
yeah, I mean, for all you out there, support the actors. Don't support the companies.
Yeah,
they're bad. But yeah, it was a pleasure meeting them. But
that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, and I realized too in the summer that there's snotty ass kids everywhere too, and there was the same thing at conventions. I know. And then we watched a movie about 2 snotty ass kids. What is this movie about, Drew?
Well, Ponyo, for all of those who, for whatever reason, have not watched this beautifully artistic masterpiece,
Honestly,
from the onlys, the Studio Ghibli's. It was another one directed by Hayao Miyazaki, so it's always refreshing to see his work actually pay off in my respects for this one, because we've kind of picked him apart as a director and said his storyboarding needs things to be desired, but Ponyo, in my mind, beautiful. So long and short of it is it's the Little Mermaid, but in Japan. So Ponyo's a goldfish, and she's kind of lives with, what's his name? Liam Neeson. Fujimoto, who's her dad. He's kind of the balance of the seas. He uses magic and these potions to kind of breathe life into the ocean and make sure things stay the way they are. We see very early that Ponyo's curious, and she's got more magic than the other goldfish sisters that she has, so she hops on a jellyfish, see the outside world. And very early, I did also appreciate the stance they took on environmentalism in this film, because they do show how rough and dirty and despicable we are treating the ocean. So if you're listening to this, please make better choices in what you purchase and what you do with those purchases when they're done. Whether that be recycling, upcycling, or reusing. So she goes on the jellyfish and she meets Sosuke, who is this little boy who lives in a beautiful cottage by the sea. And during that whole part where she's actually on her way to meet him is a very interestingly animated opening sequence that I thought was very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've listened to BakaCo Podcast enough, you know how much of a sucker I am for background art and well done animation cells. So essentially, this movie is the movie that was made for me.
Yeah, this is like the epitome of your interests in terms of like background art and animation style and everything. Like this is picturesque at times.
And then just to not get too heavy into the plot without ruining anything and everything for everyone, Sosuke cuts his finger when he breaks Ponyo out of a cup. She gets stuck in a little glass jar. She licks his blood. Somehow that makes her magic able to take on human form, that we find out later on. But she becomes his best friend, and the movie kind of carries on from there.
And she fucking loves ham.
Yes. So we're treated to another, like, I think if Ghibli stopped doing animated films and just did trailers for food companies, they'd make more than enough money. Like this plain ass ramen that they make later on, just with like ham and eggs and fresh onions, so it looks phenomenal. But when Ponyo just eats the sandwich, like the way he pulls the bread off, it actually tears. It's like I think they spent some amount of time researching how bread peels apart to actually animate that, which was cool.
Yeah. And they also when he pulls the bread off and tries to feed it to her, when she's in goldfish form.
Yes.
She's like, no. And then he's like, oh, maybe some ham. And instead of ripping it, because if any of you have eaten like deli bought ham slices, you'll know that they don't tear that easily, depending on the type of ham you get. But like this shit was like thick as fuck. So he bit it and then like took out a piece and like was going to give it to her. And then she just stole the whole thing.
And I think the funny part that happens there is like half of it, like his mom is obviously she's focused on beating the top speed on Mount Akina there, and
like, can we finish your thought? But then I want to talk about that because there's so many things. Yeah, continue though.
Well, because when we get introduced to Sosuke, we know he's a younger kid, but like the mom says he's like 5.
Yeah, so he's 5.
In my experience, being the older brother and listening to the 5-year-old in the car, the mom's doing the exact real thing, and she's played by Tina Fey. Is saying like, yeah, that's great, honey, like that's wonderful, and now I have a dog barking.
There's a pepperoni. Everybody.
Yeah, he's out there. But basically, she's like, yeah, that's great, honey. Like I'm happy she likes ham, and then continues just to drive and have the conversation.
Complete ignoring. Yeah, the best part about the mom, that like, she's a fantastic character. I love her. I love most of the characters in this movie, but my most favorite thing about her is the fact that she drives like what is the type of racing called? It's not like off-roading.
No, it's rally car. Yeah.
Rally car. Yes, thank you. She drives as if every single time she steps in the car, it's a rally car race. Like, she tears ass around this mountainside. It is so funny to watch. My favorite scene, I think just animation wise, and it's probably one of the more iconic scenes in the entire movie too, is when Ponyo, I guess spoilers at this point now moving forward, Ponyo becomes like her human chicken form and escapes.
Oh yeah.
And like with that's like when all of the sea creatures go into the elixir of life well. I don't know. They don't really go into too much detail about that, but it's the way that Fujimoto keeps the world, the sea in balance with the world. And she goes in there and like becomes this all-powerful being for like a split second, and then all these fish turn gold and shoot her out. But as she travels back to Sosuke, like the waters become like crazy torrential. Giant fish are shooting out and becoming like these big waves, and she's running on top of them. Like a huge, basically, tsunami is coming in to hit their seaside town. And Sosuke's mom is like, all right, we got to leave. There's already like a foot of water on the ground, and she just peels out of the retirement home. She's driving across, and they get stopped where the boats dock in because the water's already like way above where cars can drive. And they're like, you're not going to make it. And this chick waits till the tide goes in and then floors it right before this huge wave hits. And then at that point, it's just gunning it straight home up the mountainside. Waves are crashing in behind her. Ponyo's chasing them basically with all these waves because she doesn't know what's better. She's just like, hey, it's Sosuke. Giant fish waves are shooting out. She's just gearing it across the turns, like holding on to him too, because the motherfucker's like looking backwards trying to find Ponyo. And like at one point they get out because Sosuke's like, Mom, a girl fell under the water. And she's like, oh, okay, hang on. Sosuke almost gets yeeted off the mountainside by a gust of wind, grabs him, throws his ass back in the car, and then continues to peel out. Like that whole, and she took it in stride too. At no point was she like ever worried or concerned. It was basically like this was just another walk in the park for her. Like this was just business as usual. Meanwhile, I would be shitting bricks. Like the moment that I saw a wave come over and hit the roadside, I'd be like, nope, well, we're going to hunker down and hope for the best, kids. Oh, God, yeah, she's wonderful.
And just the whole, like she's the power mom archetype where she's very sure of herself, she's very sure of her skills, and then when, because his dad, Sosuke's dad works as a captain on one of the merchant vessels. Is
it a merchant or marine vessel? I thought it was marine. Is it marine?
He's doing something on a boat.
Yeah, I thought he was like one of the in some arm of the military force.
Oh,
I thought he was in the Marines, maybe. But I could be wrong.
I could be wrong as well. We'll see.
I don't know. They don't go into detail of him. He's dead. He's a deadbeat.
Yeah, and they do He's like, oh, there's Dad out in the bay. Like, let's signal him as he passes by.
Yes.
And Sosuke, being like the innocent boy that he is just like, oh, mom's mad at Dad. And he like messages him. He's like, hi, Dad. How are you? And then his dad's like messaging back, I'm so sorry. I'm so very sorry.
Yeah, tell your mom I love you
yeah.
and her.
And then the English translation doesn't do it justice, but what she starts signing back is Baka, and just like over and over and over and over and just like constantly. Yeah. And then like his last message is like, I love you.
Yeah. Well, and we should explain too. So like it's through like a light panel that has flaps on it. So they're doing it they're doing it in Morse code to each other. So yeah, like so she's originally the whole scene starts with like she's gonna make a dinner, everything's going well because Dad's coming home. Sosuke answers the phone. Dad's going on another leg of his routine. She gets pissed, completely stops making dinner, opens up a giant can of beer, and then next scene is her lying on the ground, feet up in the air, and Sosuke's got his little captain's hat on, waiting for Dad to do Morse code conversations with. But yeah, Sosuke's like, Dad said he loves you, and he's sorry. She bounces up, and at the speed of light, just in English translation it says bug off. I was hoping that it just said fuck off the whole time, like fuck off, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off. Because she's doing it like I can't even imagine how fast you'd have to be able to read that, because it was coming in at the speed of fucking sound.
It's like Evo tournament ready.
yeah. She's got the fucking arcade panel pad down, just hitting the wombo combos each and every turn. Like it was so funny. But I wanted to make a comment too, because you said like Sosuke's mom is like the powerhouse. She's the stalwart character. Nothing can phase her. Not that like she's a mama bear. Like she's not like overly protective by any means, but she's very grounded and stays level headed. But I would argue that the entire fucking town is that way, because when Ponyo joins Sosuke and the ocean becomes imbalanced due to the fact that she is now like carrying this huge magical power that's driving all of these ancient sea creatures out, and the waters are rising, and there's going to be like this evolution into a new age. And by new age, I mean the old age is returning weirdness. At one point they wake up the next day, because Sosuke's mom left to go help out the retirement home. They wake up and there is water at their sliding door at their house. To put in perspective, though, their house was on the highest point of the mountainside or cliffside of this town. So everyone has drowned.
Yep.
Everyone has died. Just kidding. Everyone took it in stride, got on their boats, and was just like, yeah, this is life now. Because the last like sequence of events that takes place in the movie is Ponyo and Sosuke on his little boat that she grows with her magical powers, driving to find Sosuke's mom, and eventually that leads him to Fujimoto and the ending sequence that we'll touch on in a little bit. But like, they come across like this family that just looks like they're out on like a leisurely paddle through the water, you know? And they're like, yeah, okay, this is life. They come across the whole town that's been rescued by the military, and they're all taking them to this hotel that somehow survived. Like, yeah, everyone's cool with it. Like, no one's worried. Like, fuck, that's my life savings down there. It's literally just down there. It's in the water. It's floating. Like, no one is upset. No one is panicking. Everyone's just like, you know, it was bound to happen at some point. And I'm watching it like, how? They're like, there's one character, there's one singular character in this entire movie that acts in that manner, and it is the old lady at the retirement home that's kind of like she's the really cranky one. We're just gonna say it. She's kind of the cranky bitch that no one wants to talk to or interact with at the retirement home. You know, she's the old bat that you're just like, shut up. No one wants to hear
Oh
it.
yeah, she's the one voiced by Lily Tomlin, right? Yoshi?
Yeah.
Or not Yoshi, Toki.
Toki. Yeah, Toki.
Because Yoshi, again, is another old lady in this house, and she's voiced by Betty White.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten into the voice actors for this movie,
so.
Which they're all like insane. But
again, it's a powerhouse for no reason. Like Disney, whenever they bring these over, for some reason decides to.
Well, it's Frank and I talked about it before too. It's like it's that whole phenomenon. I think we talked about it the last time when we we did Princess Mononoke. Yeah, it's just basically to be like, I voiced a character in a Studio Ghibli film. Like, not many people can say that. That's pretty fucking cool.
That is honestly pretty fucking cool.
But like, yeah, that the fortitude of this town to just stay calm when the ocean has risen like hundreds of feet in a matter of like a half a day. I'm just like, you would think one person, like just one, would be like, something's fishy here, pun intended. Just no one is. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess everyone's just calm, cool, collected. Cool. I would be the one lone person that would probably die because I'd be the one that panics and freaks out. So good to know.
Well, I think, I don't know, I try to be the level-headed person in a lot of like intense situations, but watching essentially my home become an aquarium, like
yeah,
when Ponyo uses her magic to make the little steamboat bigger, and they start cruising over everything, and like the water's crystal clear, they can see the jellyfish, they're watching like schools of fish use the roads and stop at the signs and turn left and all that jazz. But
that scene kills me. My wife and I watched it, and yeah, not to interrupt you or anything, but we should point out the fact that at that point during this, I guess we'll say this is probably Act 3. It has to be Act 3.
Yeah.
Of the movie. There are ancient sea creatures that are showing up, and these things are fucking terrifying. Like,
yeah, they're monster hunter monsters.
Yes, exactly. They are sea creatures from the depths of hell, like the 9th circle of hell that have just risen, and the two of them are in the boat. Like, I know that one from my books. That's Decalopothodus and that one's dodecahedron maboptide. And I'm like, they're like 5 feet below you. How are you not freaking out? That thing's got teeth. That thing looks like if you merged a dinosaur and some terrifying other sea creature together mixed with alligator. Like that shit is scary. How are you guys staying so calm? But the scene that kills us is that when they are doing like the panning shots of all of the sea critters doing their thing, these giant fish things like go single file line on the road and follow the rules of the road. Like one stops at the stop sign to let the other come in. They're all just going down the way, just all in perfect order. It kills us every time. It kills us every time. Like, joking aside and everything, I will to get serious about this part of the movie. I love the fact that there is a very subtle but very blatant juxtaposition of the life of the sea as the movie progresses, because when we're first introduced to Fujimoto, it's like the very first scene, and it's just this dude in the water with like a weird ship, and there's these bunch of like ancient creatures. You see like these cephalopods, all those really creepy fish kind of floating around his ship, and you're like, whoa, this is kind of insane. Like, those don't look natural or normal. And then in the first scene with Sosuke, you see like, your regular fish, like your minnows, your crustaceans, some larger fish, but they're all like, pretty standard.
Yeah.
As the sea becomes more imbalanced, you see like the slow progression of these ancient creatures emerging to the point where now, like in the Act 3 part, it's like the sea is just full of them. Like it's a complete shift in the creatures. And so it's like you can see the ties to the initial scene where they're like, hey, this god of the sea, you know, this man that's helping to keep the world in balance, like this is the reason as to why when there's an imbalance, the sea can create these basically prehistoric primordial beings again. And you can see the connection, right? It's not like a weird, like, what the fuck's happening? Why? What are these things? It's like, oh no, we saw it at the beginning. It all makes sense. It's an imbalance. Like we're not just hearing it, we're also seeing it in action. Cool. That's something that I feel like had been missing in a lot of the previous Miyazaki films that we had watched. Like Princess Mononoke was the most recent one we watched. And I feel like part of our conversation for that one was like, you didn't see these events taking place. You just sort of heard characters talk about it. And so it didn't give it any like breadth or meaning to the story. But like with Ponyo, you actually can see it. There's that progression from the very beginning when you're introduced to all these different elements. And granted, like they don't go into details on what liquid Fujimoto consumes to get his powers and what this green well of goo contains and why like no human life or no life can get near this, you know, because it could cause an imbalance. It just sort of happens. Like there's still a little bit of gaps, but there's a lot of inferences you can develop on your own and then see in action when the movie goes on, where you're like, okay, it's giving weight now to what I was originally thinking and feeling and hearing. I can now actually see it. So I think that's a key aspect to why I feel like this Ponyo is a bit stronger. And I mean, it could be just, you know, it's came out in 2008. There's been plenty of other movies under Miyazaki's belt at this point. You know, it's being adapted more in the United States now. So there's the drive to actually like have a coherent storyline, not just something that's pretty.
Make it marketable.
Yeah. Yeah. Because at this point, it's like, okay, you have, like we were talking, like Finding Nemo, another sea creature movie that looked beautiful when it came out. 2003, folks out there listening. If you want to feel old, yeah, that movie came out in 2003. So, yeah. Being pretty was not the only thing that could drive your movie now. You had to actually have a coherent storyline. And I feel like Ponyo was probably the first one that translated well from its Japanese origin in cinema to the screens here in the United States. And I think in part it's just due to the fact that obviously, again, just more experience, whether it was better storyboarding or what have you. You know, again, a very straightforward, we'll say, plot. Nothing too chaotic they could get into.
Yeah, it was a very point A to point B.
Yeah, but it was
plot,
but it was entertaining.
Fun,
yes, yeah, it was entertaining. The characters made everything come to life. You know, even like Ponyo wasn't the only one just being loud and crazy as she was. Like there are plenty of other characters that helped drive it along too. But to what you were saying earlier, though, the animation, I think, definitely carried a big part of the movie because it's like insanely beautiful.
And there's points where you see like the characters are, wow, my mouth isn't even moving while I'm talking.
It happens to the best of us.
So what really stuck out for me was that backgrounds were backgrounds and characters were characters.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't really a meld to it sometimes, because even in Mononoke, certain backgrounds at certain points did look kind of melded to the same art style or color palette, or in some way the characters looked like they were being animated in the background and not the traditional sense where,
yeah,
like usually animated characters are in a cell separate from the background's moved in place, and then the characters put in the cell, picture taken, and then so on to create animation. So when they did Ponyo, they made that very clear distinction, and all of the backgrounds in this movie could probably stand on their own because they're so well done. Everything has very much a heart to it. places look like they're well traveled. There's tire tracks, there's marks from the boats scraping over the road in the one scene, or there's like their town looks lived in. It's not sterile and clean and like free of debris. Like we see garbage, we see overgrown bushes, we see everything that can really exist in the real world in Ponyo's world, and it makes it feel like an escape, because that's really what I like about a lot of the Ghibli films, is that they are an escape. It does, like, although it's only an hour and a half in some cases, it does take you completely out of it, and you feel like you're experiencing this world along with your characters. And Ponyo does such a good job of that, because with Sosuke, he's just a 5-year-old kid. Like, we're getting introduced to him, his family dynamic. We early on get introduced to like his schoolmates and the dynamics he has there, where he's notoriously bad for bringing stuff to school that he's not supposed to. He's got to hide Ponyo, but the senior citizens love him. Like, there's this whole city that lives and breathes, and I feel that it makes the story live and breathe. Whereas, to go back to Mononoke, like, everything's kind of already predetermined at that point. There's a war going on. There's people who don't like people. There's an iron village. There's the gods. And we're kind of just getting put in the middle of that to learn everything, along with the characters at the time, like learning about what this god does or what happens. But with Ponyo, it's more of like an adventurous journey. Like, we're kind of the parrot on Sosuke's shoulder there, just along for the ride. He's like trying to save Ponyo. She's reverting back to her fish form. What's he gonna do? What's she gonna do? And then the story resolves itself. But the best part about Ponyo is that it does feel like a fully realized story, that all the parts make sense and all the decisions make sense. So to kind of dive into our like favorite characters and favorite moments, like, we look at just the cast alone. So like Sosuke's dad is voiced by Matt Damon.
Yep.
His mom is voiced by Tina Fey. Ponyo's mom is voiced by Kate Blanchett.
Yes.
Fujimoto's Liam Neeson. When we start going into
Betty White. Can't forget Betty White.
Yeah, Betty White is one of the senior citizens.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Betty White is, I'm sorry that you've made it this far in life. Go watch Golden Girls or that one episode of Community. You're wrong. And then one of the other senior citizens is Cloris Leachman. If you're not familiar with who that is, there was a show that came out on Fox a very long time ago called Raising Hope. She's the grandma on Raising Hope who is constantly senile and then has moments of lucidity, where whenever she is lucid, she can do, like, she knows how to fix the car. She knows, like, cabinetry. She knows, like, basic house repairs. So they're always trying to, like, monopolize the grandma when she's sane. But again, Cloris Leachman has a whole other bevy of roles that I'm not even touching on, because she's an amazing actress. You should look her up too. But again, it is a stacked cast and very different than a lot of animated films, where when they have casts that aren't used to voice roles, you can really hear it. People kind of read the piece of paper, and there's no inflection on the words, or there's like, instead of like, hey, hello there, what's going on? It's, hi, hello there, what's going on?
It's like how people normally talk.
Right. And when you have Tina Fey as Lisa the mom, like, her interacting with Sosuke and how she talks to Sosuke, like, I'm not sure if at the time Tina Fey had kids then, because I know she has a daughter, at least one, she has called her mini-me, because she acts like her too. You can tell, like, she's talked to a 5-year-old before. She has the same kind of motherly speech patterns and like, okay, like, honey, I'm trying to take this turn right now. Like, I don't care about your fish. Like, let's get you to school, kind of thing. But again, like, to touch on all of those voice actors, like, or actors doing voices, it's such a benefit for a dub. Whereas I think in the past, like, Ghibli is the exception, but in the past of other films being dubbed from foreign countries, we've been burned, and that's like a bigger discussion for later. But Ghibli's been on such a roll at this point with Ponyo being so well done that like I have hopes for their newest film when it does come out that it will be well done. Or even, you know what, maybe if we just leave it as Japanese and watch it as the original, like I'd be fine with that too, because that's the source material. But again, I dive too far in. Who was your favorite?
Oh gosh, that's so hard. But just to set this up though, I want to touch on what you were just talking about in terms of like the comparison with Ponyo and Princess Mononoke. And I agree. I would word it slightly differently, because in my mind with Ponyo, we are as viewers joining an already established family dynamic, city, work experience, life experience. You know, these characters have defined personalities, and there is growth, but you're not watching the evolution, so to speak, of a character. Whereas in most other films, you're kind of getting brought in, and you are growing along with the character, right? Like Princess Mononoke is that's the case for our arguably main character, who's the prince, who like goes through the ordeal of fighting the demon, getting cast out from his clan, having to travel to find a cure, meeting Princess Mononoke, fighting in this war that he was just sort of thrust into, and you know, going through all these life experiences in a matter of like, you know, 2, 3, 4 years or however long it was, right? Like that was a journey we were along with from the very beginning, where you're having to watch someone develop, see someone evolve into who they eventually become at the end. And that's personality and everything alike. Nothing wrong with that. Again, that's sort of like what we would expect from movies. Ponyo, though, is a situation where, like you said, like we're kind of like this parrot on the shoulder that's like flies in. It's like, hey, what you guys doing today? And we're just along for the ride. We tag along. We're like, this is just a journey. We're already on day 5,872 of this kid's life or whatever it is, right? Like this is something that we're just here and enjoying as things progress. And I kind of like that piece, because it adds to the fact that this is more of a slice of life, relaxing type adventure where, you know, you're not going to have your hero arc. You're not going to have this like huge defining moment for this character, albeit there is one, I guess, for Sosuke, but it's not to the gravity that you would expect in other films. Yeah. And so that's all to say, though, that it's so hard to find one character that I really enjoy, because they all have these really fun, interesting, unique personalities, and how they interact with one another is also very unique to those characters, right? Like the way that Lisa, Sosuke's mom, talks to and interacts with the retired folk is wildly different than how Sosuke does, because she works at the retirement home and Sosuke is, you know, he's a little kid. You expect like the elderly women to treat him like a little grandkid, except for Toki, who's just a croon, raggy old bitch.
Thinks the world's ending every other day of the week.
Every other day.
Call her out for it.
Yeah, and she's not even the senile one. But like, and then like watching even Sosuke and his mom. Because one of the scenes that I love is when Ponyo gets taken back by Fujimoto, and so he's just in complete distraught, like crying, won't smile, and he gets back in the car, and he looks as though he had just woken up from being just absolutely blitzed from the night before. And he's just eating an ice cream cone, but in the saddest manner. Like when a kid's throwing a temper tantrum and you try to cheer him up by getting ice cream, and they don't eat it, they just kind of go, ugh, like do like a little like pretend lick, and like they don't even, you're like, are you even eating it, you little shit? It's melting everywhere. Don't you get one drop on my car, you're going out the window. And he's just like trying to hold back tears and licking it. But Lisa is like, give me a lick, as she's peeling around corners,
takes it like a chunk
reaching over, like, just give me a little bit lick. Yeah. And she just goes hump and takes a huge piece out. Like that's cute to see, right? That's what you'd expect from a mom and her 5-year-old. And then when Ponyo gets introduced, it's again like she doesn't ask questions. She doesn't ask why this chicken-looking girl became a girl but was originally a fish, is now in her home now. She's like, yeah, well, sure, going in stride. You know, nothing phases me. And treats her just like how she treats Sosuke too. So yeah, it's so hard to find like one character. I mean, truthfully, I think I'd give it to Lisa. Not just that she has arguably like the second most screen time in the movie, but just she embodies what you'd expect out of a mom. Like she's responsible, she's caring, she's loving, she's strict, and level-headed. It's just it's fun to see a character like this, and she's still human, right? Like it's not like she's impervious to everything. But she definitely gives this air of being like a super mom, which is, that's the type of character you root for and you want to love. So I find her to be hilarious, and I would love to see her in her next showing of a movie in which she is just a rally car driver.
She's the new, Initial D is coming back with a...
Deja vu.
With a spiritual successor kind of weird show. It's interesting. Anyways, I also wanted to touch on 2 unique things I found just while watching. So when Ponyo's like sneaking around and doing her thing, trying to escape, at one point we see Fujimoto's like bedroom on his submarine, and we see that he has like 2 different striped suits that are just like blue stripes and pink stripes hanging on his wall. And then later on in the movie, because like in the first act he's wearing the blue stripes with a coat over him. So it's like, but in the final act he's actually wearing the red striped suit. So it's like he took time to change, number one, but it's cute.
Even under the water, I assume his clothes get dirty.
Yeah, with something or other.
Yeah,
and then
must be a hell to dry clean them though.
The one thing I also found while I was digging around into like production notes and things, because I liked the animation so much, Studio Ghibli actually shut their computer animation department down during this film. So they said that they wanted more hand-drawn things, and rather than using like CGI to show a ship going from like the distance from the horizon, and then appearing closer and making that like easier to do, they're like, no, we're gonna hand draw these things. So what he recommended was hand drawing like cell by cell, and it would like have a predefined perspective and things, but he wanted the ships to appear drawn in frame by frame. So instead of kind of using a stencil and having like, this is my ship and here it is in frame 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and it's the same like perspective, size, and everything, and you just see a ship scroll across. He made them like hand draw them frame by frame because he wanted it to be more authentic. So shout out to the team that handled that. That, honestly, like you see it really early in the film, you see the ships and they look a little funky and you're like, oh, that's interesting. But then now that I had like revealed the man behind the curtain, it's cool to know that that was intentional. It wasn't that they were like trying to do something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Make the film wonderful. So all in all, I said this before we started recording, but Ponyo for me is in my top 3. I love this film. It makes me happy every time I watch it. And just the fact that someone gets as excited for ham as I do in real life, that does in an animated film, just warms my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, Ponyo is definitely a top 5. I think I know people are probably sick of me always saying this, because I don't only say this on the Baka&Co podcast. I say it on Baka Bites all the time as well. But animation shouldn't be like the driving force behind why a movie's good. It can certainly factor into it, and I think in this case, Ponyo is definitely a case for where animation would factor in quite heavily in terms of the quality of the movie, from the standpoint that it has some of the most unique animation I've ever seen. And I've been trying to figure out how to describe it ever since watching it last night, and even during, our recording. And I can't come up with any good word, but if you can, feel free to add one. But they have a consistent kind of style throughout the entire movie when they're capturing the waves, capturing water boiling in a pot, capturing like very small detailed things. It's always the same style where everything's got this like almost viscous texture to it, where it's like it doesn't flow like water. It's more like, I don't know, it's got like some solidness to it. Like when the waves go, you're not seeing like this, like the foam and the crashing. You're seeing like these big bubbly things kind of splooshing over. When the water boils, it's not like a typical boil where you're seeing these bubbles. It's like these weird, like jelly style ripples to it. And it's this, it's the style that's used for like everything throughout the whole movie. And I love it. Like, I love the fact that they found this one aesthetic that they're like, this fits Ponyo as like the water, it's all based in the ocean and it's magical. So like, how do we take these two things, one being very kind of on the surface, no pun intended in this case, on the surface plane in the ocean, right? Like, how much can you capture waves rolling and the sea foam crashing into the beach or the dock sides and whatever, or like hitting the sides of boats? Like, how many times and how different ways can you capture that without it looking like too awkward? It's like, it's kind of hard, but you have this magical element to it, right? Where things start to become more fantastical. And so you have a little bit of creative freedom to do with it. And they went above and beyond what I think most people would. Like the scene again where Ponyo's riding on top of the waves. Like it's not just the fish becoming the waves, it's how they're being formed. And like in the background, you're seeing like these huge, weird shaped waves that are, again, like it's like watching jelly swish around. It's really funky, but you're like, it doesn't seem unnatural to the movie because it's like, it's magic. Like it's so over the top that it fits it perfectly. But again, it's the fact that they used that exact style and aesthetic throughout the film that I really appreciate, because I felt like it made it seem less fantastical, right? Like all of the ways that they were able to imagine the states of water throughout the film was just so intriguing, and that style being applied to a lot of different aspects of the movie was so just kind of blew my mind in how they did it. So again, that is not the main reason why I have Ponyo in my top 5. Don't worry, I'm trying not to be hypocritical. But again, it does weigh into the rating. But I would say this was one of the few Miyazaki films that you didn't have to ask a lot of questions. You didn't have to make a lot of conjectures as to what's going on. It had a great pace to it. It had, albeit a strange ending, but an ending nonetheless. And it was something that was just really enjoyable from the very start to the very end. It's one of those films where I feel like if you just need something to put on, whether it's a bad day or whether, it's just want something relaxing, Ponyo is definitely one to fix that problem and calm your nerves and treat you to something that's just super adorable. And plus, it's got a girl that just loves ham. I mean, what more could you ask for in a character than someone who just would die for ham? So yeah, it's in my top 5 for sure. It's a very, very good Studio Ghibli film.
Well, we want to thank everyone for listening to us today, and we want to thank Akano on SoundCloud for our theme song. If you have any suggestions on what we should watch next, please send an X our way, or you can just email us at BakaCoPodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Why aren't they called excerpts? Why aren't they called excerpts?
I don't know, because that would be forward thinking, and that would require someone with a lot of money to actually do research.
Oh man, the rich. The ocean should just eat them up. I'm just gonna say
that's the story of Ponyo.
Yeah, if they're ham, yeah.
If they're ham,
yeah, easy peasy.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone.